So in this case, we are going to look into the straight line. We are going to consider how to plot, that is to draw at the end of the day. You must know how to draw a straight line graph or a linear function as we had before, right? Remember from the straight line graphs, we referred different, all right, ways or methods to draw these lines, which is using the table of values method, all right, the gradient intercept, the double intercept. So in our case, we're going to focus on the table of values method to draw any presentation, any straight line given these formats that we had before, any of these formats, all right, that we are given here, we need to draw or to plot a straight line. Remember, we referred before the issue of the Cartesian plane, working with the points on a Cartesian plane. So those points are the ones that you are going to use to draw or to plot what? A straight line. By joining them, you produce what? A straight line. So this is the case. We are given a method to follow, the table of values method. So with this method, you are going to have a table which you have the X and Y value. Some actually they gonna have the X value, okay? Then the Y value is written as that graph Y is equal to of the equation where you're gonna substitute. So here, guys, I'm not going to waste your time. So what you're gonna simply have is the X value and the Y value. So you're going to have the X values, they represent the input, and the Y values will be our output. So meaning to say you insert the input, the X value, to obtain the Y value. Okay? So on the table of values method, three values are fine to use. In actual sense, you can actually work with the two values, but we use 3 points just for clarity. If let's say you've got points like this, then you can tell that a straight line cannot be drawn because this point is not in line, or maybe it was supposed to be like this point is not in line. It was supposed to be like this point is not in line. So the third point is the one that is important, so that you can tell if 3 points lie on a straight line like this, you can simply what? Join the straight line from those 3 points. You know, okay, this is the exact line. There's no way that 3 points lie on a straight line like that and those points are wrong. No, 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 no. It can be a condition that when one of the points is wrong, maybe somewhere here, then you cannot have what? A straight line by joining the points. One of the points is what is off guard. So that is the reason or the purpose of us using what? 3 points, meaning to say three values for X, and those values of X will give us the output, which is what? The Y values. From each value of X, you insert it in the equation. Remember, your equation has X and Y. Remember that? Our equations, Y and X, Y and X, Y and X. The rest are what? Just constants. So what we are focused on is the X and Y. So I'm going to use these examples to illustrate more about our table of values where it is necessary. We are being asked here to use, or using a scale of 2 centimeters to 2 units, that is to represent 2 units on each axis, that is on both axes, all right? Draw X and Y axis taking values from -3 to +3 on the x-axis using this scale of 2 centimeters to represent 2 units. But x values must be taken from where? from -3 up to +3. Those are the values of x from -3 up to +3. Those are the x what? The x values. And the y values from -4 up to what? +5 on the what? On the y-axis. So it is important that you must have that interval in within. Your values must be taken. They must be taken in within what you're given. All right, depending with the instruction that you're going to have. All right, so 2 centimeters to represent 2 units on both axes. The x-axis, the same, 2 centimeters. Remember, 10 small boxes. You count those 10 small boxes after you indicate what? 2. 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on. So there they said for x, we are supposed to up to what? -3 up to +3. So actually these values, they're not important. 3, we just need up to +3. So 3 is actually in between what? In between 2 and 4. That is where we're going to have our 3 in between here. So that's where our 3 is. So we're going to focus on that 3. And on the other hand, it was going to be -2, -4, but we are focusing up to what? Up to -3. In between -2 and -4, -3 is going to be in between. So you just count 5 boxes from -2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The fifth box is your -3. So that was it. Then for the y values, we are still using the same scale, but we're going to take up from -4 up to what? 5. From -4, negative values, that's -2, 2 centimeters, 2 centimeters, -4. All right, then up to +5, so that's going to be 2, 4, 6. So +5 is in between 4 and 6. In between, you count 5 boxes from 4. The fifth box is your what? Your +5. So that's up to what? Up to 5 here. All right, so this is our Cartesian plan. Okay, so with this Cartesian plan, we are going to indicate or represent our graph. So I'm just going to erase, since I said -3 up to 3, right? -4 up to what? Up to 5. So that is, I'm going to erase the 6 there. Just focus on the values that we are given for that interval. All right, so you have your what? The Cartesian plan, it's fine. Now we need to indicate these lines, all right? On these axes, plot the graphs of the first one, y is equal to 3x minus 4. So here, we are given the graph of y is equal to 3x minus 4. That is the first graph that we're gonna consider. All right, so I want you to see here, we're using the table of values. We have a straight line, okay, from the formats that we had before. You can see that this is the format of what? Y is equal to mx plus c, which is the gradient intercept form, this one. Y is equal to mx plus c. So it means our gradient is what? Our gradient is 3. The y-intercept is what? -4. Yes, we know those, but it is not important. We just need that to know that it is a straight line, all right? The highest power on x is 1, and this is 1. So you know that this is a linear function, a straight line. That is only what we can tell, and that is not gonna help us to draw the line, all right? The method has nothing to do with the format, all right? What you just need is it a straight line, all right? After that, with this method, you have your x value and the y value as the output. So you're going to insert the x values, which is the input on the table. So you start with what? X values. You insert x values on the what? On the table. On the table corresponding to the what? To the given interval. Our interval for x is from -3 up to +3. So you take any 3 values in that interval. Any three of your choice. So you can use -2, 0, and 2. -1, 0 and 1, -3, 0 and 3, any three. Those are the inputs. So you just use anyone that you want. So I'm going to take -2, 0 and 2. Let's see. -2, 0 and 2. For the x, you just take anyone, any three of your choice. All right. This one, it is of your choice. These values. They are the ones which will determine the output values. So whether here you are working with your friend or whatever, then you see that you have got different x values here on the table. Do not worry about that. As long you have chosen three values from your Cartesian plan, do not worry. The line at the end will be the same. So you might have different values here. I mean, someone can use -3, 1, and 3. You've got different values on the table. And definitely the y values that you're going to have, they're different because you're using different values of x. Do not worry about that. Do not worry about that. So using the x values, insert them on the table. As we can see, we've inserted. Then we substitute into the equation. Substitute into the equation. I'm just going to write in short to obtain what? X, to obtain the y values, to obtain the y values. So this will give us the corresponding y values by inserting each value of x into the equation where x is, you substitute. So we are back to the algebra, that part of our algebra. Y is equal to 3x minus 4. That's our equation. So x is what? The first value, -2. So when x is -2, you substitute in place of x here, you put -2. So y is equal to 3 times the value of x -2. So you multiply to the value of x -2, then minus what? 4 as it is. So you substitute into the equation to obtain the y value. So what is going to be the y value? 3 times -2, you can even use a calculator here. 3 times what? -2. All right, then we subtract 4. Right, let me go back to the normal mode. Sorry for that. Okay, so this is going to give us what? -10. So that's a -10 here. When x is what? When x is -2. When x is equal to 0, you do the same thing, guys. This is just going to be the substitution here. So you substitute the value of x. X is what? X is equal to 0. So this time your x value is 0. 3 times 0, that's a 0 minus 4. That's going to give us what? -4. So the y value is -4. When x is 2, that's our input value. You do the same thing, substitute into your equation. Where x is, you put what? 2. So that's going to be 3 times 2, 6 minus 4, which is 2. Or just use your calculator. 3 times 2 minus 4, that's positive what? 2. So the y value is 2. So that's the table of values. You substitute into the given equation the values of x that you're given. So in our case now, you see this one is going to limit us -10 because of what? The interval. So that's another thing, guys, if you're given something like this, but mostly in exam, they are not going to give us an interval which is which does not correspond to, say, the values of x that you have. If you substitute them, then the y value is not going to correspond like what we can see on this case here, -10. We do not have -10. Our y values are up to what? -4. So this one, it is just an issue of the textbook that I'm using. They just failed to properly indicate this, all right, which is something that for exam, you're not going to have something like that. But anyways, let's see the other values. Here, we can see that these ones, -4, we have the y value as -4. This one is fine. Y is +2, we have it. So we're just going to focus on the first value, this one. We need to find a value within the interval. But let's say all these values were within the interval, you're simply going to use them as they are. But here we chose a value as we are given our interval, but the corresponding value for y is not there on the interval. That's something that you must change now. But in other cases, it's not like that. Actually, for exam, like I said, they are not going to give us something like that. All right. So let's see if we're going to choose -1, but I don't think this is going to work. We just need to focus on positive values. -1 is not going to work. It's going to give us -7. So let's choose 1 when x is what? 1. It's -1. So we're going to change and use when x is what? When x is 1. So here, this one, we're going to change it. All right. So here, I don't know, guys, if you're going to understand me. So I'm going to take 0 and it's -4. Okay. Sorry for that. So 1 is going to be in between here. So this is where I'm going to have what? 1, 0, 1, 2. So I'm going to take, when x is 1, at least I know the corresponding value of y is what? In within the interval. So when x is 1, it is something that we just added. So we saw that if we are going to substitute here when x is 1, y is going to be what? 3 times 1, that's 3 minus 4, so y is -1. So this is in within the interval for what? For the y values from -4 up to that 5 that we are given. These values, they are found in within. So they must be in within the Cartesian plane. Anything that you're going to draw, guys, is from where? From this Cartesian plane. So if your values are not here, where are we going to have the line? You see, so that's why I'm saying they just made a smaller mistake on giving us an interval which does not correspond, of which it's not. We cannot say it's a mistake. That's what they wanted. That's the author. That's what he or she wanted. So we just follow that. All right. Anyways, this is your table. After this table, you use those points as they are on the table. All right. The input to the output as they represent x and y. So you mark the points. So you mark the points from what? From the table. Mark the points. Instead, we're supposed to mark the points on the what? On the graph. So you're going to mark them on the graph. These points from where? From the table of what? From the table of values. So from our table of values, we are going to mark these points on the graph, then join to produce what? A straight line. So join the points. That's the last part. You join the points to produce what? A straight line. To produce a straight line. All right, by just joining these points. So you must use what? A ruler to do that. You must use a ruler to join those points. So that's basically what we're going to need. All right, so let us quickly do this. So I said mark the points on the graph from the table of values. These are the points. X, it's 0. Y is -4. So it's like a point. This is a point, actually 0 minus 4. You see now, guys, we are back to those points that I talked about before. So when the point is 0 minus 4, I said you focus on the y value. Since x is not given, mark y is what? -4. So direct at the point where y is -4 in the y-axis. You mark the point. Okay? So you're going to mark the point -4 in the y-axis. So that's our point what? 0 minus 4. Direct in the y-axis. You mark that point. You can use x. You can use a plus. It's not a problem. All right. So that's our point what? 0 minus 4. We move on. 1 minus 1, the next point, when x is 1, y is what? -1. So that's a point, this one, x, y. X is 1, y is -1. So how do you mark a point? Remember what I said, guys? When x is 1, that's going to be in between here, in between 0 and what? 0 and 2. And the y value is what? -1. So -1 is in between 0 and what? -2. So that's the point 1, -1, where these two meet. You just take the x value going down, the y value going to the right. So where these two meet at that point, you mark the point. That's the point what? 1, 1, where these two meet 1 and minus 1. So you've marked your point. You move on to the third point, 2 versus what? 2. When x is 2, y is 2. So you just mark again, when x is 2, y here is what? 2. These two, they meet here. Where they meet, you mark a point. So that's it. Where these two meet, you're going to mark a point where x is 2 and y is 2, according to our scale that we are given. So these 3 points, if we are to join them using a ruler, we are going to produce a straight line. So you must put a ruler along, then join, you produce what? A straight line. So that straight line, it must just exceed those points. Just draw something that is passing through the points that you're given, this point and this point. It must pass through, all right, like that. So that is how you can have a straight line using your table of values method. So you have this straight line and you must write down its equation. What is the name of the line? The name is the equation. That is y is equal to what? 3x minus 4. You write down the equation. Y is equal to 3x minus what? Minus 4. Just like that. So you can see, guys, you can draw a straight line using 3 points. So you must have what? 3 points. Just 3 points. Enough. They're enough for us to have what? For us to have a straight line. So if the other point, let's say this point here was somewhere here, then you see that you cannot have a straight line because another point is there. So that's the third point, is just for reference sake to see if truly the 3 points are in what? Are in line. If they are in line, therefore, it means, guys, we are actually correct in our calculations. All right, let us quickly have this one. All right, then we have got another one. I'm just going to put this one on the same, using the same concept. Another line is what? Y is equal to minus 2x. All right, so let us just have that table. Y is equal to minus 2x. That's the second line that we're going to use using the table of values like before. So let us see, guys, what we're going to end up with. All right, let's see if these values for x, if they are fine. Okay, we're just going to see if they can work. Y is equal to what? Minus 2x. All right, y is equal to minus 2x. All right, I think they're going to work. So let us insert for the x value. All right, when x is 1, I'm just going to use the ones that we already have here. So when x is what? 0, y is equal to what? Minus 2x. Okay, sorry for that. So that's negative 2x. So when x is what? When x is a 0, you put a 0 there. What will be the value of y? Minus 2 times 0, that's what? That's a 0. So that's a 0 here. You do the same thing when x is 1, just put a 1 here in place of x. What will be the value of y if x is 1? Minus 2 times 1 is minus 2. So y is what? Minus 2. All right, the same thing when x is what? Positive 2. So you just put 2 in place of what? In place of x here, you put 2. Minus 2 times 2 is what? Minus 4. So y is minus 4. All right, we can see that these values, they are within the interval 0, minus 2, and up to minus 4. Yes, these ones are there. So let us quickly plot. All right, we substituted these values of x. We now have the values of y. So we have to mark these points on the what? On the graph. So that's the first point, 0 versus 0. When x is 0, y is 0. That's the origin, remember? When x is 0, y is 0. That's the point on the what? On the origin. So you mark the point. Okay, another point, 1 minus 2. When x is 1, y is minus 2. When x is 1 here, y is what? Minus 2. They meet at this point. So where they meet, 1 in the x, 1 from x and the minus 2 from y, they meet here. That's 1 and minus 2. You mark a point where these two meet, all right? Another point is what? 2 minus 4. Where x is 2, y is minus 4. Where x is 2, y is minus 4 down here. They meet at this point. So that's the point that you're going to simply mark here. where x is 2, y is -4. So using these 3 points, we can simply join them and have what? A straight line, just like before. All right. So using what? A ruler, you join those points, those 3 points like this. All right. So those the 3 points, yes, they can meet like this, but we must use what? A ruler, guys. Here I'm using this one, but you must use what? A ruler, and they must all be in line, meet in line properly. So if you have a ruler, all this that I'm doing, you have to do all this because it will be direct, guys. The ruler, remember, is already straight. So all this that I'm doing here, you won't be doing that on your graph, but you just have to join once you draw that. That is our straight line that we have just drawn. And what is the name? The name y is equal to what? -2x. Its equation y is equal to -2x. That is the name of what? This line. So let us compare these two lines. The first line, it was like it's slanted going up like this. It's facing up. The other one is like this. What is happening? All these lines that we are seeing like this, guys, they have a positive gradient. And these ones facing down like this, they have a negative gradient. So if you check here, the value here, the coefficient of x is your gradient. If y is the subject of the formula, the coefficient of x is the gradient, -2. That's why the line is like this. It has a negative what? Gradient. This one, the coefficient of x, y is equal to 3x. The coefficient of is positive. It has a positive gradient. So that's like this, all right? So that's another thing that you must also understand, guys, right? By just looking into these lines, you must know in case that you have made an error, then you can tell, oh no, this one cannot be like this because it must have a gradient, it has a positive gradient, it must look like this. Those are the things that can just help you in drawing these lines later on. But anyways, let us say, okay, from what we are given, we are done with this one. We're gonna move on to the last one. All right, this one, which follows, if you check this one, it is similar to that format, ax plus by is equal to what? C. All right, where a, b, and c are constants. So do not worry about that. As long you can see this is a line, the way that it is represented, guys, using the table of values method, do not even worry. Yes, some of you want to make y the subject of the formula. Yes, it is fine. I'm not saying it is wrong. But as it is, you can what? Use it, that equation. 2y minus x is equal to what? 5. All right, that's our equation this time. 2y minus x is equal to 5. This is what we are given here. 2y minus x equal to +5. So let us apply our table of values just like before to obtain the y values. Let's see if these values are going to help us, the one that we are given here, since you can see that the value, to find the y value at the end, we must divide by 2. So whatever value of x that we're going to choose, we must be careful that we're going to divide by 2. So we're going to choose at least here, since this one is an odd number, then let us choose x to be what? An odd number. All right. Okay. Let us just work with odd or prime and even prime. Let's just work for this is even number. So let us look for a prime number here, since this one is also prime, because a prime is going to give us an odd. It's going to give us an even when added to a prime or when subtracted to a prime. So let us look for that, since this one is what is even, because we're going to divide by an even number. So to use 0 is going to be a risky. So let us choose what? -1. All right, 1 is okay, but to use a 2, because 2 is even, you must have a prime number. So, all right. As if I say a prime number now, guys, guys, please forgive me here. Please forgive me here. Let's go back to the word odd, and what? Even. Okay, because we're going to have odd. When you divide by 2, you're going to have a remainder of 1, because on those prime numbers, remember 2 is a prime number also. So let's get rid of that odd, prime number, odd and what? Even, odd, even, odd, even, like that. So sorry for that, guys. Here, your teacher is confusing you here. Sorry for that. So this must be odd so that we do not make a mistake. Odd, odd. Okay. So one is odd, two is even. You cannot use that. So let's choose an odd number, which is going to be something like 3 again. All right. So that is a better. I'm not saying choosing other values is wrong. If you have got a proper scale where you can see this is 1,5, this is 1,2, it's not a problem. But if it is difficult, like for you now to realize, oh, it's better for you to not, all right, what is that you're working with here? It is what? An even number. So this being odd, you must get an odd to get an even number. When you add that odd to an odd or subtract odd to odd, you're going to have what? An even number there. So that when divided by this even number, it's not going to be a problem, guys. That's what I'm simply trying to do. Anyways, guys, do whatever way that you understand. I've already illustrated using these two examples. So you can do the way that you understand. You can even make y the subject of the formula. It is up to you. Okay, so when x is -1, I want you to see now 2y minus x. Our x value is -1. This one, the minus here, the first one is of the formula, this 2y minus, 2y minus. It is part of the formula. The x value is the one that we inserted here inside. It is also a negative. So do not confuse that negative and the negative that we have there. There's a negative on the formula, and the number that we are inserting, it also has a negative. So it's 2y minus 1 is equal to what? Is equal to 5. You solve for y. So minus and minus is going to give us what? A positive. So that's 2y plus 1 is equal to 5. 2y is equal to, you take 1 to the other side, it's going to be a negative. So 5 minus 1, that's what? A 4. So you see, guys, you now have what? An even number, which is easier when you divide by what? An even number. You are going to have what? A whole number at the end, which is what we need. So 4 divided by 2 is going to give us a 2. So that will be easier, guys, if you do it that way, as we can see. All right. Anyways, let us move on to another value of x, which is what? Positive 1 this time. When x is positive what? Positive 1. So you put 1 here, positive 1. So that's negative times a positive is going to give us a negative. So 2y minus 1 is equal to 5. Taking the -1 to the other side is going to change into a positive. It was a negative. So it's going to be positive 1. So that's 2y is equal to 5 plus 1, which is 6. So as you can see, it's an even number. Divide by 2, divide by 2. That will be easier, guys. Y is equal to what? 3. So that will be very, very easy if you can work it that way. I'm not saying the other way is wrong. No, no, guys, do not say that. Say I was saying this. No, 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 no. This is mathematics, guys. We can play around the way that we do understand, which is important that you understand those basics. All right. So let us move on to the last one. When x is what? 3. Okay, plus, negative and a positive, that's a negative. So 2y minus 3 is equal to 5. Take the minus 3 to the other side is going to be positive 3. So that's 2y is equal to 5 plus 3, which is 8. Divide by 2 by 2. So y is what? 4 divided by 2. 8 divided by 2, that's a 4. So the y value at the end, okay, sorry for that. The y value is going to be a positive 4. So that's it. The y value is positive 4. So with these values that we have just indicated on our Cartesian plan, we are going to use them to draw the graph by marking these points on our Cartesian plan. All right, so let us have our points on the Cartesian plan as they are. You can see that, all right, they are all part of our graph. All right, minus, is it here? 1, Guys, did I write something wrong here? So -1 gave us what? 3, 2. Where did I get the 2, guys? No. This is supposed to be 3, isn't it? When x is 1, 2y minus 1 is equal to 5. The minus 1 to the other side is going to be what? Positive 1. So 2y is equal to 6. Wait, I think I wrote 3 then. Here I wrote a 2, guys. What's happening? I think someone was like saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? This is 3. All right. Anyways, let us correct. So you see now, we're going to notice this later on when we are drawing the graph. We are going to see that error, guys. If let's say you are someone who is like, okay, you cannot realize that there's an error somewhere, then you can even check like when you are now plotting, but that is where you can say, okay, there is an error here. But anyways, we noticed that before. So let us utilize that and have our graph. The first point, -1, 2. -1, 2. When x is -1, here in between 0 and -2. So that's our -1. So we need -1 versus what? 2. -1 versus 2. Y is supposed to be positive 2. X is -1. These two, they meet here. Where they meet, you mark a point. That's the point what? -1, 2. When x is -1, y is 2. Okay, another point, 1, 3. When x is 1, y is 3. When x is 1, y is 3. So 3 is in between 2 and what? In between 2 and 4 as we are going up in between 2 and 4. So we need 1, 3. When x is 1, y is 3. These two, they meet here. Where they meet, you mark a point. That's the point 1, 3. And another point, which is the last point, is 3, 4. Where x is 3, y is what? Y is 4. So these two, they meet here. Where they meet, mark a point. That's the point what? 3, 4. So using these 3 points, this one and this one and this one, you are going to draw a straight line. By joining these points, you're going to produce a straight line. All right. So that was basically what you're going to have at the end. So as we can see, guys, it is a direct something that we can work with. All right. So we have got our straight line. And like I said, the equation of that line is the name of the what? The line. You must write down the name. What is the name of our straight line? 2y minus x is equal to 5. So you write down the equation 2y minus x is equal to 5. That is the name of our straight line, just like that. So we have used the table of values to draw these lines, all right? These lines that we just had. So that is how we play around. So that is it, guys. In our next class, we are going to continue with representing of these straight lines, sketching these straight lines. Actually, no, not sketching these straight lines. We are going to leave that part a little bit, but we're going to focus on that, guys. No, what we're going to do is to focus on the simultaneous equations. Actually, that is what we're going to do, all right, on our next class. So let us do revisions, all right, basics on what I have just given you guys, how to draw these straight lines, do a lot of examples using what? The table of values method, all right? So the next class, we are going to continue using the same method, but after drawing those lines, we are going to solve what? Simultaneous equations, and just look into some other aspects, gradient, and so forth, finding of the equation of that straight line. Then we move on to other methods. But for now, that is it, guys, till we meet again.